Hi everyone. Today I want to tell you about how you can be better plant parents. Now, each of us who has ever had a plant, even an algae, is considered a plant parent. Now, I want to tell you about things that affect the most crucial part of a plant's life, especially photosynthesis. Photosynthesis can be affected by both internal and external factors. Now, internal factors may include many things like the number, size, age, orientation of leaves, mesophyll cells, chloroplasts, the internal CO2 concentration, the amount of chlorophyll. There could also be other internal factors such as the genetic predisposition or the tendency of a certain plant to suffer from a particular condition or to act a certain way, and also the growth of the plant. But what we can control is the external factors that affect our plants, such as temperature, carbon dioxide, the external concentration, water, and the light intensity. How we can control CO2 is by putting our plant in a greenhouse and using things such as KOH, which help us absorb the excess amount of CO2. Alright, let's discuss each of the factors in detail. Now, before I tell you further, I want to tell you about the Blackman's law of limiting factors, which states that if a biochemical process is affected by more than one factor, then the rate is determined by the factor which is the nearest to the minimum value. So, let's say you've got a plant with good CO2, good light, good temperature, but you're giving it very little water. So, everything that the plant does, every single thing, is decided by the water concentration. Light is the first factor let's talk about. So, light quality, light intensity, duration of light, everything is extremely important when I talk about light. Light is also essentially directly proportional to carbon dioxide fixation. Because for those of you who don't know, the plants have got two processes, the light reaction and the dark reaction. And it's your light reaction which is extremely dependent on the light, and it's the products of the light reaction that decide the CO2. Also, I'm not suggesting you to expose your plants to sunlight too much, because if you expose it to too much sunlight, the temperature goes too high, the water conditions go wrong, the CO2 conditions go wrong, photorespiration might start. So, that is a terrible idea. Even at higher temperatures, it will completely disintegrate the chlorophyll. Also, even if you're not exposing it to very high sunlight, there are chances that the other factors will become limiting and your photosynthesis will remain constant. Now, usually light saturation occurs at about 10% of the full sunlight, hence, except for the plants in shade or in like really dense canopy forests, light is never a limiting factor. Let's now talk about CO2 concentration, which is major, which is very low in atmosphere. It's only about 0.03 to 0.04%, and if this level increases to even 0.05%, it is enhanced. But beyond 0.05%, no, that might be a really bad idea. Now, at low light intensity, both C3 and C4. Now, C3 and C4 groups are completely different plant groups. C3 are usually found in regions such as the US, temperate regions. If you're watching this from USA, Canada, or any temperate region, your plant is more likely C3. And if you're watching this from some tropical country, your plant is more likely to be a C4 plant. So, at low light intensity, both the groups of plants do not respond to increased CO2 because you do not have the products of light reaction. So, you have no whatsoever effect on photosynthesis because dark reaction is useless without the products of light reaction. And that's why beyond a certain level, increase, we understood that without the products of light reaction, dark reaction will never happen, and therefore even if you have like really excessive amount of CO2, your low light intensity will disrupt your whole photosynthesis dreams. Now let's talk about the saturation point. So C3 plants essentially have a very high saturation point. They need a lot of CO2. Now they are in temperate regions, right? And that's why they require a lot of CO2 and they can undergo photorespiration, etc. And that's why the excessive need of CO2 is a little scary, And C4 plants don't require as much CO2 because they don't undergo photorespiration. So even if less CO2 concentration is there, it doesn't matter because they can concentrate CO2 by themselves, while C3 plants clearly lack the machinery to do so. Now, greenhouse crops like tomato, bell pepper, etc., they are exposed to high CO2 for higher photosynthesis, and that means higher productivity. So, the whole point of this video is to get more productivity, and that comes from higher CO2 and higher photosynthesis, baby. Now, let's talk about temperature. So, dark reaction is usually controlled by temperature since it's very enzymatic. There are so many enzymes if you've watched my other videos. Light reaction has a much lesser temperature sensitive criteria. Then, when we talk about C4 plants, as we increase the temperature, photosynthesis increases as well, baby. Because C4 plants do not have any sort of photorespiration, and therefore, temperature, opening, closing of stomata, they don't give a fuck, bro. Yeah, that's what happens. And C3 plants, on the other hand, have a much lower optimum temperature because they have photorespiration. And the moment the stomata closes, oxygen accumulates, photorespiration begins. So I'm going very deep into science, but I'm just saying that C3 plants, temperate regions, do not expose them to too much sunlight or you will be in ruins, right? Now, temperature basically depends on the habitat, as I told you. So tropical plants can have a higher optimum temperature, such as C4 plants, while temperate plants have a lower temperature optimum, such as C3 plants, right? Now let's talk about water. So water doesn't necessarily affect photosynthesis directly, but it affects everything that affects photosynthesis. So water basically causes stomata stress, CO2 availability goes down, baby. Now CO2 goes down because everything is filled with water, bro. And since leaves are too high, everything just goes out of the plant. So yeah. Also, the leaves start to wilt. When there's too much water or too little water, leaves might cause wilting. Surface area of leaf goes down. Metabolic activity decreases, baby. It's all bad. So I hope this video was fun to you. Ending with a little night sky scene.